Dude, so brutal. This is what I should have known because I would have made some different gear choices. I wish I'd known how complicated it can be to link up with off-trail friends, which sounds really bad now that I'm saying it. If you're looking for like a restful night of sleep so you can recharge and get ready to get back on trail, then some of these places aren't the best for that. I've been to the podiatrist 2 different times. I've been to physical therapy because of foot issues. Dude, my feet have never been the same after the AT. He was shocked at my state when he picked me up. He was like, dude, you smelled so bad. I was like sitting under that bridge with no shirt on. He was like, dude, you were literally homeless. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd, and no guest this week. I'm doing a solo episode. I'm going to be going over 20 things I wish I had known before I thru hiked the Appalachian Trail. I love talking about the AT. I love getting nostalgic, and I think I have a good variety in these. Some of them are kind of just strictly personal to me, but I think most of them are going to be applicable for anybody. Some of them are like gear related. Some of them are more related to the experience, maybe the social aspect of things, and beyond. Some of these are probably going to be a little too deep for me to properly explain, but I think there's going to be a lot of value here as well. This camera angle looks like shit. I apologize. But with that said, dude, let's just jump into it, man. I just love talking about the AT. So the number one thing I wish I knew before the... Okay, actually, I should say, not in any particular order, because that made it sound like this was the number one thing out of everything I wish I knew. No, that's not what it is. I wish I knew that I preferred hotels over hostels when I went into town. And now that I'm saying that sentence out loud, it's like I had to learn somehow. So it's not like a regret of mine. Like I don't regret like, oh my God, I wish I hadn't stayed at hostels. Like, no, it's not like that. I'm just trying to teach here. So I found out fairly early on in the AT that I preferred hotels over hostels. Now, it's a bit more nuanced than just like saying that, because the truth is sometimes you don't really have any options. And at the end of the day, it's just personal preference. So if you're like a very social person and that's like the number one thing you're excited for, and I don't know. I guess we'll just leave it there. If you're like a very social person, I think you're going to like hostels a little bit more. If you're not really that concerned with your privacy, you don't mind using a shared bathroom, you don't mind sleeping in a bunkhouse with 10, 20 other people. 20 might be a bit dramatic, but you don't mind sharing a bunkhouse with strangers. You're not going to have any problems with hostels. Now, when you're actually sleeping on trail, like when I sleep in a shelter and there's strangers and other people there, it doesn't really bother me that much, but I think that's because you're like on trail, like you're kind of already roughing it a little bit. You're prepared for that mentally. But when I go into town, dude, I want to treat myself a little bit. I don't want to have to share a room with 10 other people when I'm in town. And so I preferred hotels, dude. Another thing, I've mentioned this before on the show, but another thing with hostels is like sometimes, not most of them, the majority of them are run by great people doing a great service for hikers, but every now and again you'll find one that's just like, I don't know, maybe it's a little run down, maybe it's kind of a party spot. And so if that's what you want, then have at it. But if you're looking for like a restful night of sleep so you can recharge and get ready to get back on trail, then some of these places aren't the best for that. I'm not even going to speculate on which ones are good and which ones aren't anymore, because it's been so long since I hiked. Like there's probably hostels out there that have changed ownership like 3 times since I was last there. So I'm not even going to do that. But that's just something that I wish I had known. Hotels are just a little better. Also, if you're by yourself and you don't have a big budget, like hostels are usually cheaper. So I don't know. A lot of things to consider here. The second thing I wish I had known before I hiked the AT is one that I might get some slack for, and justifiably so, because this next one is I wish I had known that camp shoes would actually be kind of nice on the AT. I had to throw a gear one in here early. I've done a lot of backpacking, and a lot of it has been without camp shoes. Like on the PCT, I did not bring camp shoes, and there was never a time where I was like, oh shit, I really wish I had camp shoes. I've even done shorter East Coast hikes, like the North Appalachian Trail, didn't bring camp shoes, and They probably would have been nice on that trail, but I don't really remember like wishing I had them. But on the AT, I started without camp shoes, and I ended up buying some. I believe in Hot Springs, North Carolina is where I bought them, at the Dollar General there. And it's pretty rare. You guys that watch my videos and listen to me regularly know it's pretty rare that I'll buy a new piece of gear. I'm usually talking about gear I don't like, gear I want to get rid of and stuff to save weight. But like, I don't know, dude. I just got rained on a lot at the beginning of the AT, and I feel like maybe I would do things a little bit differently now. But I just know at the time, like, I wanted camp shoes. Like in the Smokies, got absolutely pissed on, and it just kind of sucked at the end of the day. When you finally take your shoes off, you finally let your feet dry out. It just sucked to like have to put those wet shoes back on anytime I wanted to move. Or if I was in my hammock, like if I even wanted to just get up and take a piss. Like, I mean, I guess I could go barefoot, which some people definitely do, but I never like to walk around barefoot when I'm on trail because I'm just afraid I'm going to like poke my foot, cut my foot, and then next thing you know, I'm hobbling for the next 5 days because I have a big gash on my foot. So that was not an option for me. And so like, I ended up picking up camp shoes, and I kind of wish I had known from the start that I would want them, because it would have made the first, what was that, couple 100 miles a little bit easier for me. But then again, even today, I'm like West Coast hiking definitely would not take camp shoes when you're on dry trails. But like for really wet trails like the AT, I still have a hard time accepting that I would bring them. It was a little bit easier for me to accept it back then, but I think I kind of wish I had had camp shoes from the start on the AT. Number 3, I wish I'd known how much food to carry between resupplies. And this is something I still wish I knew. I've said it before, like I still fuck this up. It's so hard for me to judge. Do you guys have any secrets for judging the amount of food you take, between resupplies? If you do, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you do, because after so many freaking miles, dude, I still can't figure this out. And I certainly didn't know at the time either. And it's something I wish I had known. I feel like it's a little bit easier on the AT than a trail like the PCT, for instance, because the food carriers are generally shorter on the AT than the PCT. But like, I don't even have any more insight for this one, because out of everything on this list, I feel like this is the one that I still have not figured out. I always have too much food, man, every single time. Number 4, I wish I had known. This is a classic, generic one, but it is very true, and that's why I included it here. I wish that I had known how much I would just treasure the photos and videos from my AT through hike. And I'm not talking about for content, by the way. Let's completely remove YouTube and Instagram and everything from the equation here. I just mean, I wish I had known how much I would treasure these photos and videos just on a personal level, dude. All the time I go back and I look through my photos. I'm going to have a bunch of them included in this video, I'm sure. All the time I go back and I just look through the photos, and I'll try to find ones that I kind of haven't looked at in a while, or maybe ones that I've kind of skipped over the last couple times I've went through, and it'll bring back a new memory. I created a group chat with Flossie and Mullet Mike and some of the other people I met on trail, and asked them to like upload their photos and videos from trail, because I was just thirsting for more. Like, I wanted more memories. I actually feel like this with everything in my life, even off trail stuff. Like, I barely have any pictures from when I was younger, and it really bums me out. I didn't save shit, which was dumb. But yeah, man, I wish I'd known like how important those photos and videos. I hardly took any videos at all. Like, the only videos I pretty much took were for my Instagram story. And at this point, I've seen all those 1,000 times. And so, man, I just treasure that stuff. Like, it was obviously, the AT was such an important experience in my life. One of the most important things I've ever done. One of the most influential things, some of the most fun, some of the hardest times I've ever had physically and mentally. And so it's just such a formative experience. Obviously, it's led me to where I am today. And so, man, I just treasure those photos, and I just wish I'd known. Of course, I knew like, oh, this is a significant thing. So I had the foresight to take photos, obviously, but I just wish I had taken more, man. I wish I had taken more, and I just wish I knew how much I would treasure them. Number 5, I wish I had known, which this is what I should have known. I wish I had known how cold it was going to get at the very end of my thru hike, because I would have made some different gear choices. So I hiked the AT in a hammock, as the regular listeners know, and if in case, I'm sure most of you probably know this and probably know more about hammocks than I do, even to be honest, but there's some real hammock nerds out there, dude. Have you seen these people? In case you don't know, hammocks tend to sleep a little bit colder than tents. My understanding is this is due to the fact that you're suspended in the air, and so you get some airflow underneath you, you get a breeze, and that just makes it a little bit colder than if you were sleeping on the ground. It was great for most of the trail, especially during the hot portions on trail, like going through the south and through the middle of the trail when it was super hot. It was actually kind of nice being in a hammock because I wouldn't even have my sleeping pad under me. It was almost like having a little extra cooling when you're trying to sleep because I sleep pretty hot. And so that was nice. But by the very end of the trail, I summited Katahdin on October 1st. So I was hiking, through northern Maine towards the end of fall, and it's getting pretty cold. We had some nights in the 30s, and I wasn't quite as prepared for it as I wanted to be. I didn't like freeze to death or anything, but I definitely had a couple pretty cold nights, and especially when it rained and I would get really, really cold from just being wet. There was a couple times where just like, it would have been nice to know I had a little bit of extra security and I had a little bit extra warmth to come home to at the end of the night in my hammock. But as a result of the gear choices I made, I was kind of banking on shelters not banking, like I wasn't going to die if I didn't get a shelter spot, but I was kind of more heavily relying on shelters by the end of my through hike, and it would affect a lot because I knew that I would sleep warmer in a shelter, and so I knew that I really wanted to get to a shelter before it filled up, and so I would hike pretty hard during the day, maybe not take as many breaks as I wanted to, maybe not hang out with people as much as I wanted to, because I wanted to make sure I would get to that shelter. And 9 out of 10 times, not only did I get a spot in the shelter, but I got the first spot in the shelter. So I think I took it a little bit too far. But if I had brought along some extra insulation, especially bottom insulation, like an underquilt or something, or just a better sleeping pad, I wouldn't have been as concerned about this. I would have slept warmer, and I wouldn't have beat myself up trying to get to a shelter spot every night for the last like week and a half, 2 weeks of my hike. And so this one maybe is a little bit more specific to me, but if you're finishing in September, especially later in September, just be ready. It's going to be cold, and you might need to make a couple gear choices to cope. Make a couple different gear choices, I should say. All right, the next one, another gear one, actually. I wish I'd known that I did not need sunglasses on the Appalachian Trail. I started with sunglasses. I carried sunglasses all the way until like Vermont or something like that, and I ended up losing them. I think I left them in a hotel or something. And so not the end of the world. They don't weigh very much. They were a cheap pair, so I wasn't like worried. They weren't like a $200 pair that I lost and was pissed. I honestly did not give a shit when I lost them, but we got to get a little specific, and I could have saved an ounce or two if I didn't bring these sunglasses. I didn't need them. And I'm one of those people. I've heard that my girlfriend tells me because I have blue eyes, that makes them more sensitive to like sunlight. I don't know if that's a thing, but I do know that my eyes are very sensitive to sunlight. So for instance, anytime I'm driving, if it's even remotely bright outside, even if it's not sunny, if it's just remotely bright outside, I need to have sunglasses or I don't feel safe behind the wheel. Certainly walking around anywhere when it's sunny and I'm in the sun, I need sunglasses 100% of the time. And so I'm not someone that can just get away without sunglasses normally anyways, right? But on the AT, dude, I brought these sunglasses the only times I can remember wearing them. You know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I must have lost them after. I must have lost them in New Hampshire somewhere because the first time that comes to mind is on top of Mount Washington, going through the presidentials, because you're exposed, you're above tree line. I wore them there. I wore them on top of some of the balds in the south. Like I think there's a picture of me on like Big Bald wearing them. And then I wore them as a joke on Springer Mountain because it was not even sunny. And I was like, oh, it's not sunny, but I'm wearing sunglasses. Super funny. Just, I don't know how I came up with that one, dude. And so I wore them a couple times and like, yeah, they were nice to wear during those times, I guess. But I wore them so infrequently that I really feel like I just didn't need to bring them. And then, like I said, I lost them and I didn't even care. It was never, even up on Mount Katahdin, it was a sunny day. And like, if I'd had them, I probably would have worn them, but I was fine. On other trails like the PCT, definitely want sunglasses. But on the AT, I wish I'd known that I was basically just wasting my time with them, but also it doesn't really matter that much. Number 7. Oh, I wish I had known before my thru hike that it was okay to take a new trail name. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure I did know this, but I didn't do it, and I wish I had. Also, I've gotten, actually, you'd be surprised how many questions I've gotten about like the etiquette around trail names and like the rules, I guess, is actually a better way to say, around trail names. Like, can I take a new trail name? How do I get a trail name? Can I give myself? And so I figured that this would be an interesting one to talk about. It's been talked about a little bit too on the show before, but I kind of wish I had taken a new trail name on the AT. You guys, if you're a regular listener, you know how much I talk about how stupid my trail name is and how I hate telling the story of my trail name. And I won't get into that, but the AT would have been a perfect opportunity to reinvent myself, dude. No, it would have been a perfect opportunity to get a new trail name finally, right? And instead of being stuck with this one that doesn't, I mean, I like the name Narnar. It's just the story behind it that I don't like. So I wish I had maybe taken a new one on the AT, but I mean, I already had my trail name going into the AT, and so I wasn't even open to it. I was already introducing myself as Narnar, and so nobody was thinking about giving me a new trail name at that point. I already had one. So that would be kind of funny. This is totally off topic, but if you wanted to like fuck with some people on trail, you don't actually do this, but it would be kind of funny if you like just went around giving people new trail names that already had trail names. I just thought of that. That's kind of funny. It probably wouldn't go over too well, so don't actually do it. But anyways, I mean, there's plenty of people out there that change their trail names. If that's you, leave a comment. Let me know if you've done that. And so it's not like it's not a big deal. Oh, this next one's a good one. And this is something that has not been talked about very much in any of my content. I wish I'd known how complicated it can be to link up with off-trail friends, which sounds really bad now that I'm saying it. What I mean is, so you're on a thru hike, and say you're hiking through New Jersey, and I have a friend from high school that lives in New Jersey close to the trail, and they offered to come like host me and pick me up and take me in for a day. On the surface, that sounds great, doesn't it? But in reality, when you're on trail, it can be a little bit more complicated. And so before I left for my AT thru hike, I knew there was a few friends that lived relatively close to the trail, and we had kind of made like some loose plans. Like, oh yeah, when I get to Virginia, you'll come pick me up. We'll do this. Or I had another one in Massachusetts, a friend from college that came and picked me up in Massachusetts. And before I left, it sounded great. I was like, yeah, dude, I'd love to see this person, of course. Love to spend some time with them, especially after not seeing them for a while. I'd love to get cleaned up and have like a free place to stay and everything. And it was great. And I don't regret doing these things, but it always turned out to be way more complicated meeting up with these people than I thought it would be. And so some things you have to consider are they are a regular person. They have a regular life. They have obligations. They have work. They have things they need to do. And so in order to make it easy for them, you're going to want to tell them, just like you would if you're making any other plans, you want to be like, yeah, we'll meet at this spot at this time on this day. But when you're thru hiking, you don't know exactly where you're going to be 2 weeks in advance, when you're trying to make these plans. Or you don't know exactly what time you're going to, even if you have a rough date, you don't know exactly what time you're going to be there. You can't have this person just sitting there waiting for you all day. And so as a result, you're going to probably end up getting to the pickup point a couple hours minimum before they pick you up because you don't want to be a dick. You don't want to be rude to them and make them wait. And so then you're just sitting there for a couple hours while your friends are continuing on. And that's a whole nother thing, especially later on or even early on, actually in the trail, you've got people you're kind of hiking with and your tramley. Love that word. You got your tramley, dude. And, I can't even say that without cringing. You've got the people you're hiking with and you don't want to like lose them. But if you end up taking a day off with somebody off trail, chances are your friend's not going to be able to take in like 4 or 5 other stinky hikers, right? You don't want to ask that of them. And so like, dude, they end up just getting ahead of you and then you take your day off and you might not catch up to them again until they take a 0. And then, or you might not catch them at all, or you're hiking extra hard to catch up to them. So it just makes it complicated. And so I'm not saying that you shouldn't meet up with off-trail friends on your thru hike. I think these are just things you need to consider a little bit more because I did not consider these things and I wish I had because maybe I would have made one less stop. Another thing to consider too, if your friend that you're meeting up with is a backpacker, then you probably, or a thru hiker, you probably won't be concerned with this. But if they're not, they might be a little shocked when they see you. I remember the first person that I met up with, like an off-trail friend, was one of my best friends, Dan, who I've probably talked about him a little bit, but he doesn't do social media or he doesn't care about this stuff. So he's never been on the show or anything, but we had backpacked a lot together when we were younger. We kind of got into it together. And even he, as someone who had never thru hiked but had been on trail a decent amount, even he was shocked at my state when he picked me up. He had just come out of his like job. He was wearing like his nice fancy clothes, and he rolled up and picked me up at the James River Bridge there where you go into Glasgow. He picked me up there, and he was like, dude, he was like, you smelled so bad. I was like sitting under that bridge with no shirt on. I had just gone swimming in that kind of nasty river. And he was like, dude, you were literally homeless. And so just keep that in mind. Like if your friend's not a hiker, they might be shocked at your state and your smell, and they might not. And you might be, I wasn't embarrassed because it was Dan, but I could see if it was someone who was not a backpacker, like I think I kind of would have been embarrassed a little bit about like my state and everything. So I don't know, just something to keep in mind. Just depends on your friend, I guess. Number 9, this one's similar to the photo one, but I wish that I knew that I would one day just like I would savor and cherish the photos. I wish I had known that this is what I'm saying. This is too deep for me. I wish that I had known I would just cherish the moments as well, because this is a tough one, because I don't really want to say that I would have done a lot of things differently necessarily, but just like, if you can recognize that a moment you're in is going to be like something you're going to love and remember forever, then that's good. And I think more so, I think I probably would have remembered even more things if I had. This is one of those things where it's like, it's hard for me to say that like I should have known this, but like, I just wish I had, but there probably really wasn't any way for me to know this. So I'm not trying to be hard on myself, but it's just like, man, I would have remembered more things. I would have been more careful to like remember details. I would have taken more pictures and videos, certainly. And so I guess it's just something to keep in mind. And I should have known this. Like, obviously, like I'm doing like a bucket list thing. Like, of course, and that's not to say that I didn't cherish the moments and everything, but I don't know. This one's kind of stupid, to be honest, but it's just such a formative part of my life. Anyways, next one. I wish that I had known that I was perfectly capable of hiking on my time crunch. And so, again, this has been talked about, but I started the AT really late. I knew I had to get done basically by October 15th because that's like the hard, or at least at the time, probably still is, like the hard cutoff of like, don't summit Katahdin any later than October 15th. Like you have to be done by October 15th. And so I also needed to start work around then. And so I had this like kind of a deadline essentially. And this is another one of those things where like, I wish I had known that I was capable of doing this, but also there would have been no way for me to know it because it was my first time doing it. But it would have been nice just to take a little bit of the pressure off of myself. As I got further on in the trail, and as I got further on, I realized like, okay, I'm hiking at a perfectly fine pace. Like I'm going to make it in time. And a lot of that pressure kind of was gone. And I didn't really stress about it for the second half of my hike. But for the first half, especially say the first month and a half, it would stress me out a little bit. It was more just something I was always thinking about. I was always calculating my mileage. I was always making sure that I was on track. And if I had just known, Kyle, you're going to do this thing, dude, which there would have been no way for me to know that again. But if I had known that, it would have been a little bit less stressful. And so I guess if there's anything you can take away from this, it's just like, I was in pretty good shape. I had a decent amount I had about as much backpacking experience as I could have without having done like a long thru hike before, you know, and I'd done the long trail before. So I had a almost 300-mile thru hike under my belt before the AT. I had enough, and I was in good enough shape. I had enough experience, I should say, and I was in good enough shape going into the AT that I think, and I had prepared enough that I think I should have not been quite as stressed out about it for the first half of my hike as I was. The next one, oh boy. This one is that this is another personal one. I wish I had known how sweaty I was going to get on this trail because it was bad, dude. And if I had known how bad it was going to get, then I think I could have mentally prepared myself for it. So before the PCT, I spent a lot of time mentally preparing myself for the heat and the desert and the sun and all this. And it was still really difficult, but the fact that I was mentally prepared for it did make it a little bit more manageable. Before the AT, I had no idea how much I was going to sweat and chafe. I had no clue. I'd never experienced that before. I'm sure I knew on a surface level that like I'm going to be hiking through the South in the summer. So yeah, it's going to be hot, but like I didn't really think about it that much. And so I feel like after a month or two on trail, my body just reached a new level of sweat. I sweat more than I'd ever sweat in my life. I would literally, on some of these really hot days, I would literally be drenched head to toe in sweat. I've said this before, but not an exaggeration. It was like I jumped in a swimming pool. My leg hairs were stuck to my leg, my freaking shorts and my shirt, my hat, everything was completely soaked, as wet as I would have been if I just jumped in a river with all my clothes on. I'm not even joking. And so like, it was uncomfortable, and I probably smelled so bad on some of these days in the middle of my hike, even towards the end of even in Vermont, I had a couple days where it was really hot. Dude, so brutal, so brutal. And I just wish again, I don't know how I would have known this, but if I had, I could have been a little bit more mentally prepared for it. I could have made some changes as well to the way that I did things, and it would have helped. And I'm going to talk about chafing a little bit more here soon, I believe, if I recall this list. Whoa, motorcycle. Okay, the next one. Oh, this is a big one. This is something I discovered way too late in my backpacking career. I wish that I had known that dehydrated backpacking meals, you know, your backpacker pantries, your mountain house, your whatever. I don't even like either one of those brands, so I don't know why those are the first two I thought of, but I wish I had known that those meals aren't as bad as I thought they were. For some reason, before, during, and even after my AT through hike, you'll even find me saying this in early episodes of Trail Tales and early videos on the Kyle Hates Hiking channel. Like, I just had this idea that all these meals were disgusting, that I didn't like any of them, that they were just not worth the money. They were way too expensive, which they are very expensive. But I completely wrote them off. And I was very genuine about this. I was genuinely convinced that these meals were just terrible, trash, not worth it. And that they were just or that a Northside was better, or mac and cheese was better than these meals. And I just totally wrote them off. And as a result, I did not eat a single one of these meals on the AT. Even sometimes, rarely, albeit, you'll find them in hiker boxes, or like weekend hikers will give them out and stuff. I wouldn't take them. You know, it didn't happen often that happened. Didn't happen often that happened. Man, I got away with words, but that didn't happen often. But occasionally when it did, I would turn them down. Nowadays, dude, like, I would totally take them up on those. Like, they're not that bad. I don't know why I was so against these meals. Like, the price had something to do with it for sure. And even now, like on the PCT, I wasn't buying backpacker meals every time I went to town, obviously, or even most of the time, because for a long through hike like that, it just adds up and it's just too expensive. But like, it would have been nice to have a little bit more variety in my food when I was on the AT. And if I had worked in some of these dehydrated meals, then that would have helped that. And it would have helped me eat a little bit more, I think. I probably would have eaten a little bit healthier, although, again, I wouldn't be buying them a lot. But I don't know. I just wish I hadn't completely wrote these things off. And on a slightly unrelated note, if I could give any piece of advice when it comes to food, you know, somewhat adjacent to this topic, I guess, it's that you should just be open-minded with your food. Pay attention to what other hikers are doing, and see if you can get some ideas from them, some inspiration. I feel like 99% of the new food ideas I've gotten have not been from finding out about them myself. It's been from other people and kind of watching what they're doing, whether it's from videos and stuff like that, or just from, probably more often, from people on trail, just seeing what they're doing and being like, oh, that looks pretty good. Because in the moment, dude, if you're sitting there and you're eating a Northside for the 1000th time on trail and you're just sick of it, and you look over and the person next to you is eating something creative and new, in that moment, it looks really good. And so you're a lot more open to the idea of switching up the food than you are when you're just sitting at home before your hike or whatever. This next one, you're going to want to listen up if you've never done a long through hike before. This next one is that I wish I had known how much of a toll through hiking would take on my body. Now, this is a little tricky because I don't think I would have not through hiked, even if I had known this, but I don't know. I just want to say that I really do feel like it's taken a toll on my body, particularly my feet. Like, dude, my feet have never been the same after the AT. I've still been able to do the things I want to do, but like, I've been to the podiatrist 2 different times, 2 different podiatrists over the years. I've been to physical therapy, like when I was on the PCT because of foot issues. I've gone through tons of different shoes. I still to this day have not found a shoe that like works for me, I feel like. Even like recently I've been experimenting with different shoes and I just can't find one. And so I don't know, all this to say that thru hiking does take a toll on your body, and it's not talked about that much. It's one of those things that maybe gets shoved down there because instead people are romanticizing it and whatever, and I'm certainly guilty of that as much as the next guy. I don't think that I wouldn't have done it, and I still want to do it more in the future, so it's not like I regret thru hiking because of the toll it takes on my body, but I guess it'd be somewhat useful to know that, right? Like, hey, Kyle, this thing, I don't even want to know what kind of toll it's going to take on my body in the future, man. I'm not even 30 and I already feel like I really feel the effects. And so I've said it before, drink every time I say I've said it before in any of these episodes. I say that all the time. I'm sorry, guys. It annoys the shit out of me when I'm editing. I'm like, why do I keep saying this has been talked about on the show before, but I still just say it. I've said it 5 times already, at least in this episode. But anyways, I don't have anything else to say about this, apparently. I just wish I'd known that it takes a toll on your body. And I mean, I don't just mean in the moment, because obviously it's going to hurt in the moment. Your feet are going to hurt. Your knees are going to hurt after a 20-mile day. I mean, like long term, it's taking a toll on my body. Next one. Again, this is something that maybe I did know a little bit, but I probably didn't appreciate as much as I did until I was on and after my AT thru hike. And I've certainly appreciated this a little bit more as I've gotten older and more humble, I'd like to think. You know me, most humble guy out there. No. I wish I had known how much work goes into maintaining the Appalachian Trail. I'm talking literally maintaining the trail, you know, making water bars, clearing blowdowns, things like that, but also the shelters and the campsites, the signs you got to make. How about just protecting the corridor, protecting the trail itself, you know, working reroutes for sections that end up closing, stuff like that. Like, there's so much that goes into it. Certainly from the ATC, but also just from all the volunteers. There's tons of them all up and down the trail that are just volunteering their time and their hard work to make a trail for strangers to hike. It's just unbelievable. And I think when this really kind of settled in, of course, again, I knew that like people are maintaining the trail and shit, obviously, but when it really settled in that I was like, fuck, dude, these people do so much. I remember hiking through like the mid-Atlantic section of the Appalachian Trail, and there's a section, I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was from like Northern Virginia through maybe like Southern Pennsylvania. There was if you know, leave a comment, please. There was a section maintained by, I believe it was the Potomac. I should know this, dude. I'm an idiot. I really am quite stupid. Potomac, Potomic, I think. Something like that. Appalachian Trail Club. There's a river with that name. You know the word I'm thinking of. Dude, this club, the shelters, the campsites they were maintaining, the way that the trail was through their section was unreal. I was like, this trail club is sick. And they had their shelters were amazing. Like, I gotta look up this stupid. Oh no, it's Potomac. Why can't I say this? This club, dude, like, that's when it really sunk in. I was like, oh, they are going above and beyond. And ever since then, I've just started to notice like some of the little things too on trails, like something you might not even think twice about. You come to a little, not like a big river crossing where there's a giant suspension bridge. Like, you'll definitely notice that. I'm talking you come to just a little stream, maybe even something that you could probably just rock hop over. Like, it wouldn't be that big a deal. And there's a little wooden footbridge there, just a basic one. Somebody went to the effort to build that bridge, to haul the supplies out there, to make sure it was safe. And you would just walk over it and forget about it 2 seconds later. And so, like, these are the things I just kind of started to think about a little bit more. And I wish I had gone in with that mindset from the start. Not that I was some, like, ungrateful piece of shit or anything like that, like trashing the trail. I wasn't doing that. But I don't know. The unsung heroes, man, of trail. It's just like the people who put in all this work to maintain the trail. I love them. And I know some of them are going to be watching this, so I appreciate you very much if you're somebody who maintains not just the AT, but any trail. Appreciate you so much, dude. And I wish I had thought about that a little bit more before the AT. All right, next one. Oh boy, it wouldn't be a Trail Tales episode if Kyle didn't talk about snakes. I wish that I had known. This one is, you know, a few of these I've been like, oh, like there wasn't really any way for me to know this. This one, I genuinely should have known this and wish I had thought about this more because it could have been very bad. I wish that I had known how to deal with dangerous snakes on trail because in case you need a refresher, I had done most of my hiking in the Northeast where snakes, dangerous snakes, I should say, rattlesnakes and copperheads essentially aren't a concern. You know, I'm from Vermont. I'd done most of my hiking in Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York and stuff. Or I should say, northern New York, Adirondacks, New York, where rattlesnakes aren't really a concern, although there are some rattlesnakes in the Adirondacks, but they're very geographic specific, and I'd never been in those areas. Anyways, I'd never seen a rattlesnake in my life before the AT. And well, yeah, I saw one very early on the trail and I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't watching my step. I feel like I did think about this a little bit before trail. I was like, oh yeah, I knew there was rattlesnakes out there. I did know that much, but I wasn't being as careful as I should have been. I wasn't yet in the habit of like, not that you're walking around paranoid, like, is there a snake there? Is this like, no, I'm just saying like, eventually I got into very quickly after the incident that happened at the Georgia-North Carolina state line. Very quickly after that, I got in the habit of just like scanning where I'm stepping at all times. And it doesn't take that much energy once you get used to it. You're not even really thinking about it. It's a habit. You just start doing it. But I should have thought about this more because yeah, once again, it's been talked about before, but I kind of just said it there when I was right before I crossed into North Carolina. I almost stepped on a rattlesnake. Still to this day, the closest I've ever been to stepping on a snake, and it was just sketchy. And if I had known how to deal with these snakes, I would have done a few things differently. First of all, I would have seen the snake before I even got close to it. I would have been paying more attention to where I was stepping and the trail in front of me. Second of all, I would have gone around the snake. But instead, since this was the first time I'd ever seen one, I got freaked out. I was also a little bit amused and fascinated. And instead of bushwhacking around the snake and continuing on, I just waited for the snake to move, and it took 30 minutes before the thing finally moved, right? And so I wasted a lot of time. Not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, the wasted time, but like just kind of stupid, kind of annoying. So like, I wish I had known like how to deal with dangerous snakes. I would have been a lot more regretful if I stepped on the damn thing too, but thankfully I didn't. Next one, I wish that I had known, oh, this is a big one too. Another one I genuinely should have known. I wish that I had known when it was time to replace my shoes. And maybe this goes back to my feet issues and shit now. Like my first pair of shoes on the AT, I didn't replace until Glasgow, Virginia, which I don't remember exactly how far that is into the trail, but it's got to be a good like 600, 700 miles at least, maybe even more. Comment exactly what it is. I'm not sure, but it's somewhere in that range. And to be fair to myself, I had never hiked this much at one time or in one shot before. And so I'd never, like on my long trail through hike, which was before this was the longest I'd ever backpacked for, 270 miles is not really enough to need to replace your shoes at all on. And so I'd never dealt with this. And so my first pair of trail runners, I just dragged out way too long. My feet were killing me by the end. By the time I got rid of them, that is. And like, dude, I was so stupid. I didn't even realize. It took me a while to realize why my feet were hurting so much before I finally realized it was time to get rid of my shoes. And you meet these people on trail. Comment if you're this guy. It's all good. I'm not hating, but you meet people on trail that like pride themselves in how far they can go without changing their shoes. You know, they got like one thread left on their trail running shoes. And they've got like 1,000 miles on one pair of trail runners. And they're like, no, dude, they're fine. And even though they're obviously destroyed. And like, I mean, hey, if you can get away with that, then more power to you. But I would not recommend it. And it certainly would not work for me. And I would have saved myself a lot of foot ache, you know, towards the middle of my through hike there if I had replaced my shoes, if I had known when it was time to replace my shoes. because I did not know that. And nowadays I replace them probably even earlier than I need to be honest. I've probably wasted a lot of money because of that. I've swung totally opposite end of the spectrum. Next one, I wish I had known just how close I was going to grow with a lot of the people that I met on trail. And Flossie is the biggest example of this. I mean, you know, he's one of my best friends, and we met on trail. We were roommates for 2 years. Like, we still talk all the time. He was a big part of this channel, or not this channel, the main channel for a while. Like, and he has been a big part of Trail Tales too. He's been on a bunch of times, and I'd like to get him on again in the future. So like, I knew going into the AT that I wanted to make friends. I wasn't expecting to not see anybody. Like I was aware enough that I knew it was going to be a social experience sometimes, but I didn't think, I don't think I ever thought that I would make like some lifelong friends from this. And I think that if I had realized that was a possibility, I might have been a little bit more social. Now, I wasn't like a shun-in, but I feel like once I kind of found my group, I wasn't, honestly, it was like this on other trails too. I hate to say it, so maybe I didn't learn my lesson, but once I found my group, I was a little bit more closed off to like meeting new hikers. Not that I was being a dick or anything, but I just wasn't as eager to get to know more people and to chat and stuff like that. And I think if I had understood, at least in a perfect world, if I had understood just how long lasting and important some of these friendships would end up being to me, then I think I might have been more eager to make even more friends and make new friends and make new connections. But unlike that one, this next one is one I did end up learning and adapting to. This next one is that I wish I had known how important it is for me, and I think for most people too, to recharge in town. And particularly the angle I was kind of coming at when I thought this one up is that on the AT, I was on a fairly tight budget, definitely more of a budget than I was on future hikes after that. But I still had, you know, I still had enough money. I wasn't like scraping the bottom of hiker boxes to get by or anything. And so I would feel kind of guilty sometimes when I would spend money in town. And I'm not talking about like blowing money. I'm not talking about going out and getting drunk until 2 in the morning and wasting money and stuff like that. I mean, just like bare essentials. Like, I would feel a little bit guilty about staying at a hotel and splitting it with a few people, even though it wasn't that expensive, or about treating myself to that extra meal or whatever. I would always end up doing it, to be clear. I would always end up caving and spending the money. I would just feel guilty about it. And I wish that I had realized that it's okay to treat yourself in town a little bit. Obviously, you don't want to blow your budget out. You have to be smart about it. But like, I don't think I was being unreasonable about it, and I didn't need to feel guilty. And not only is it okay to do these things, but it's actually, I'll speak for myself, but I think this is going to be true for most people as well. Like I said, it's not only is it okay to spend some money and treat yourself a little bit, but you kind of need to. Like, it's essential. Now, there are people out there that can just never spend a night in town and be fine, but like most people, dude, I feel like, I'll speak for myself. That's all I can do. It was essential for me to spend nights in town. It was essential for me to recharge, and the fact that I would feel guilty about spending whatever, I don't even know, like 60, this is back in 2018 too, spending 50, 60 bucks, maybe even less, probably even less back then, honestly, especially in the South, like spending that money on a hotel room that I'm splitting with other people. The fact that I would feel guilty about that after having just hiked through the rain for 3 days, stupid. Like, of course you need that. It's essential. And so don't feel guilty about it. Don't waste your money, obviously, but don't feel guilty about it. You need to do it. It's an essential part of thru hiking. This next one, I wish I'd known how mentally challenging the very end of the trail was going to be. Again, this is drink. This has been talked about, but I feel like it's been a while actually since this has been brought up, although it was talked about at length in, episodes in years past. But anyways, Maine, the very end of the trail was the most challenging part of the trail for me mentally. And I wish I'd known that you can't let up the mental game, right? I've basically, the way that I always talk about this, as many of you have probably heard before, apologies if you can hear that siren outside my window. The way that I always talk about this is, right from the start down in Georgia, I feel like I was pretty mentally strong, and I really made a strong effort to not think about how many miles I had left, not to think, and not just miles, but how much longer I had left on trail. I didn't want to psych myself out. I didn't want to intimidate myself. But I did a really good job of that. But once I got to Maine, something just changed. The fact that I was in the last state on the trail, I just couldn't resist the urge to, not even the urge, just the whatever. I couldn't help but think about the end. And even though I was really close to the end, you still got 280-ish miles to hike in Maine, and it's pretty tough trail too. Like I said earlier, it was getting kind of cold. It was very beautiful in the fall and stuff, but I'd been on trail a long time at that point. And so I guess I just wish I had been a little bit more mentally prepared for that last push, and I had kept up my mental strength a little bit longer, because I think I would have cherished that last few weeks on trail a lot more than I did. It just wasn't the best experience for me. The best part about it was meeting Baker and Jessica, honestly. Speaking of friends and friendships and stuff, because I met them at the very end, which is ironic that the hardest part of the trail for me was right around the time when I met them. So maybe there's a correlation there. Maybe Baker in particular is responsible for me not liking Maine. But anyways, that's not true. I just wish I had hung in there a little bit more mentally towards the end, and I didn't. And this one is personal. And again, this is maybe one of those things where I couldn't have possibly known this, but I still wish I had. I wish I had known that this thru hike was going to lead to where I'm sitting right now. I wish I'd known that it was going to lead me to eventually kind of make a career out of this, or if maybe it's too early to say this is my career, but I'm doing this full time. Like, it led me to where I am today, basically. And I wish I had known that, because first of all, I would have taken a lot more videos, because it kills me that I talk about the AT so much. And you'll notice anytime I talk about the PCT, I have a lot of B-roll that I'll put over on the screen. I got a lot of video to back that up. But on the AT, I didn't know I was going to be this YouTuber jerk that would need video. And so anytime I talk about the AT, I don't have video. I just put up my pictures, or I don't put up anything at all, because I didn't film anything. I took like 3 landscape videos the entire trail. It's ridiculous, but I wish I'd done that. But on a deeper level, dude, like, maybe I don't wish I'd known this. Maybe it would have caused me to overthink it, because I'm already overthinking it. I don't know. So maybe I don't wish I'd known that I would someday be a YouTuber talking about trail a lot. I don't know. One thing I do wish I knew, though, was if any of you are going to be at Appalachian Trail Days, AT Trail Days in Damascus, Virginia, from May 17th through the 19th, 2024. If you're going to be there, leave a comment and let me know. Thank you to everyone who commented a few videos ago, because I'm going to be there as well, and it'd be cool to do like a Trail Tales listener meetup. If you watched all the way to the end, too, you're probably more likely to be there and want to do that. So if you're going, let me know. Like, if you're for sure going to be at Trail Days and you're interested in this, not like, oh, that sounds fun, but I live in Somalia, so I'm not going to actually go. If you're actually planning on going and you would want to do a fan meetup, a listener meetup, whatever, let me know in the comments. Either way, I'll see you there. And leave a 5-star review, dude. If you made it this far, you're still listening. Most of you tuned out already as soon as I started doing the plug for Trail Days. If you're still listening right now, there's only probably less than 20% of you. So congratulations, first of all. Second of all, 5-star review. Please leave a 5-star review. I read them all. I love them. I love you. And I'll see you guys next week.